In September of 2020, I spent 2 weeks alone on a farmstead in rural North Dakota at a writing retreat. I was 14 miles from the nearest town of 1,200 people. When I say alone, I mean alone. In 14 days, I saw 3 humans: a farmer, a census worker, and my husband who came to stay for 1 night. Those 2 weeks were the single most uninterrupted period of silence I had ever spent. Physically, I had my devices, I had the internet. But psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, I had stepped away from my demanding role as CEO of a nonprofit and that of mother, wife, daughter, sister. I was alone. The first full day was a curated fantasy of solitude. I meditated, I did yoga, I baked bread, I read, I wrote, and I went for long walks. And I relished the silence and the lack of questions, which normally came at me from about 1 million different directions. But the second full day, that day was kind of a nightmare. I woke up and I was unsettled. I couldn't settle my mind. I wasn't sick, but something was off. And by mid-morning, I felt like I was in a full wool bodysuit in a sauna. I was hot and itchy and restless and desperate to escape. But escape what? So I called my husband and I said, I cannot do this. I need you to come. And he said, do you really want me to come? I really hated that question. Because that question was rational. And I didn't want rational, I wanted rescue. No, but yes, but no, but no. Can you relate to that? Have you ever had that disturbed mental or emotional feeling, but your calendar, your schedule, your obligations expect you to push through, show up, and be on? So I hung up the phone and I paced through that house, unable to quell this discomfort of silence that was coursing through me. But then a small voice cut through the noise and said, what if this discomfort isn't a problem? What if it's an opportunity? What if you don't busy it out of existence or push it out of the way or numb it? What if you lean into it? What if you just see where it takes you? Discomfort followed me all that day and night, but I didn't judge it. I just observed it. It sat in my chest like a hive of buzzing bees. But I woke up the next morning and I felt lighter, like something deep inside me had shifted and the discomfort was gone. The feeling in my chest that morning was blindingly bright yellow and utterly calm, like a perfectly focused spotlight, inviting me to step into its illuminated warmth. And so I did. By sitting in the discomfort, by not judging it, what I realized is I had essentially detoxed from my real life. So the Optimum Health Institute says silence calms the body. Just 2 minutes of silence does more to settle your nervous system than soothing music. Silence lowers cortisol. It slows the heart rate. And it repairs and restores your nervous system. Silence gives us clarity. It's the transformation into stillness, which is where real disruption can begin. So great. Good story. But who cares? You might be sitting there thinking, I'm not going to take 2 weeks on a farm in North Dakota, Dana Del Val, so what am I supposed to do with this? But here's the thing. You don't have to. Because my story isn't about time or location or solitude. It's about breaking this habit of noise. We have a catastrophic deficit of silence in our lives. We are surrounded by sound, podcasts, streaming services, music, television, social media, the pings on our phones, and so much more. We're so caught up in the sound of the outside world that I'm not sure any of us can hear that little voice inside that is desperately trying to help us figure out what's next. The spark that's trying to remind you of a memory that used to matter or give you a clue to your next bold step that you'll start to take one step at a time. So here's where it comes down to you. You don't need a farmstead in North Dakota. You don't need 2 weeks. You don't even need the absence of people. You just need a pause, an ability to get quiet, and the opportunity to step away from the noise. That's the essence of what I call the Silence to Spark framework. Number 1, silence. Create the interruption. You don't need days, you don't need hours. You need one small moment so that you can begin to hear what's inside in the face of what's outside. Silence the noise. Put your phones and your smart devices away and let your mind wander in ways that it hasn't in years. Number 2, stillness. Stay long enough to see what emerges. Now, this can be the uncomfortable part, the unsettled brain, the buzzing in the chest, the feeling that something is off. If you start to feel restless, that's not failure. That's the doorway. Most people will run, but if you can stay even just the tiniest bit longer, you will begin to discover what your spark is trying to tell you. And spark. Let the clarity surface. Most often, what's coming next is quiet. The small kernel of what you want. The tiny ember of an idea. The faint memory of something you used to love doing. Silence, stillness, and spark. Those 3 steps are what changed everything for me. Now, I understand that for some people, silence doesn't feel safe. Trauma, anxiety, mental health crisis can make sitting in stillness feel scary. This isn't about pushing through or shoving into places that you don't want to go. It's about gentle invitations to step into a moment of quiet. So my invitation to you, before the end of today, find one small moment. Maybe it's your drive home. Maybe it's while you're brushing your teeth or getting ready for bed. Turn off the noise, sit with what arises, and let your spark tell you what is next. Because your next extraordinary chapter isn't going to come from doing more, being more busy, showing up and being on. It comes from silence. It comes from stillness. And when you do that, when you make space for not just doing, but becoming, you might finally hear the question that you've been too loud to hear. Spark, asking, are you ready for what's next? And maybe today, you finally say yes. Thank you.